Group of ministers has been formed on the Uniform Civil Code. This group of ministers will be headed by Kiren Rijiju. The group of ministers meet on One Nation, One Law was held yesterday. They will be discussing all issues related to UCC, and this is once again evidence and proof that the government is very intent on ensuring UCC becomes a reality before the 2024 elections. Because there are a lot of reservations, a lot of groups who are against it right now, these group of ministers will be discussing all issues related to UCC, what perhaps the draft could look like, what kind of reform is needed in the country, and how it will affect different groups, how to bring them on board. It was formed, in fact, yesterday. You had a meeting taking place yesterday where a series of union ministers had come together. This group of ministers will be headed by Minister Kiren Rijiju. So that's the big breaking news that's coming in right now. Even as we've been seeing the Law Commission also taking in views from every single group on what really needs to be done with UCC, what each religious group believes on UCC. Now what we're looking at is in fact the government taking steps to ensure that they are also fully prepared, that they have an expert team of ministers coming together. So this is the big breaking news that's coming in. Remember that we've been seeing a number of high-level meetings, whether it's chief ministers with the Prime Minister or whether it's ministers who've been coming together in one huddle after another. And in almost all of these meetings, UCC has been brought in on the agenda, has been discussed in great detail, because the government, the Modi government, recognizes the fact that for UCC to be brought in, you need all states on board, you need all religious groups on board as well. So the remaining members, let's get you those details. The group of ministers who are part of this huddle is Smriti Irani, G. Kishan Reddy, Arjun Ram Meghwal. All of them have come together. Of course, the GOM, as I mentioned, is being chaired by Minister Kiren Rijiju. All senior leaders, as you can make out here. Let me just read out for you the composition again. Chaired by Kiren Rijiju, you have Smriti Irani, Kishan Reddy and Arjun Ram Meghwal, who are part of this particular group. They met yesterday. There will be a series of meetings that will happen going forward as well. So there's a reason each of these ministers have been chosen. Kiren Rijiju has been chosen because he will essentially address the problems and reservations that tribals have with UCC. Smriti Irani will talk about issues related to women's rights. There's been a lot of talk about UCC bringing in gender parity. G. Kishan Reddy, MOS Home, will bring in issues related to northeastern states. Law Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal on the legal aspects. How will this stand legal scrutiny? Could there be some legal challenges? All of that Arjun Ram Meghwal, being the law minister, will address. So you can see that this group of ministers have been picked, each for an area of expertise that they will bring on board, and each topic extremely crucial when you talk about the discussion of UCC, whether it's women's rights, whether it's tribal rights, northeastern states having reservations, and of course, very importantly, the legal aspects of these cases. Now, beyond that, these ministers, this GOM that's been formed, will also discuss every single issue with some chief ministers of the Northeast as well. And that was how they will take things forward to ensure that there is a holistic discussion on UCC. Paulami Saha is joining us with more details on this. Very interesting development, this, Paulami. Run us through really why the government felt a need to ensure that there's a group of ministers dedicated to addressing and ironing all issues with regards to the UCC.
There are, of course, certain issues in terms of how you're going to address this issue of a common civil code across various communities. That includes the tribal groups as well. Remember that when the parliamentary panel recently met under the chairmanship of Sushil Modi of the Bharatiya Janata Party, this was one of the issues that came up, and they, of course, discussed how tribal groups need to be kept out of this, to look into various aspects in terms of the implementation of the UCC. They've brought in each of these individuals who look into tribal communities. Kiren Rijiju hails from the Northeast. Again, in terms of implementing UCC across the Northeast, it is going to be a huge challenge as well, given various laws and, of course, prevalence of various communities in that region. That is going to be extremely challenging. Arjun Ram Meghwal, of course, he is the Union Law Minister, so bringing in the legal perspective in terms of implementation of UCC, that is going to be very crucial. Minister Smriti Irani to look into women's issues vis-a-vis the implementation of a common civil code, because of which they've now formed this unofficial GOM, which met yesterday. It will be chaired by Kiren Rijiju. Some of these ministers even met with BJP President JP Nadda just a couple of days ago at the BJP headquarters, which included, of course, Kiren Rijiju and Arjun Ram Meghwal. Akshita.
Interesting composition. If you look at the ministers who have been chosen, Paul, I mean, each for an area of expertise that they will bring in on the UCC. So the government here recognizing that, yes, there are some challenges. If you look at women's rights, if you look at the northeast states having reservations, if you look at the issue of tribals as well. And these are concerns that they're looking clearly to address directly.
Absolutely. These are very important and significant issues in terms of them being sticking points as well, and them being, in fact, areas from communities from where there is some amount of resistance. And already, like I said, as far as tribal groups are concerned, this was something which was, in fact, discussed at that parliamentary panel meeting which happened on July 3rd in the Parliament building under the chairmanship of Sushil Modi, Rajya Sabha MP from the Bharatiya Janata Party. So clearly, they're looking at various communities and various groupings where, in fact, the implementation of a civil code, a common civil code, is going to pose its own share of challenges, and that's exactly why this composition has been put together. So Kiren Rijiju looks at the northeast, tribal issues, all of that will be taken care of by G. Kishan Reddy. He'll be addressing all of those issues. He, of course, continues to be a minister in the Union Council, despite, of course, being appointed as BJP State Telangana Chief. Then, of course, there is Smriti Irani, who will look at women's issues when she brings in that area of expertise, as she is, of course, a women and child welfare officer, minister, I beg your pardon. And then, of course, the question of Arjun Ram Meghwal, who is, of course, the union law minister. So the various legalities that will come into play as soon as you think of implementing a uniform civil code. So on various fronts right now, the government and the Bharatiya Janata Party there, Akshita, is working on the possible implementation of UCC. Of course, the doors on that conversation were opened by the Prime Minister himself when he addressed that gathering of BJP Karyakartas in Bhopal just a few days ago, probably a week ago, where he in fact said that UCC is the need of the hour. It needs to be implemented, and hence this conversation which is already happening, like you mentioned, with the 22nd Law Commission seeking reports from and suggestions and opinions from all stakeholders concerned, including various religious groups who are sending in those suggestions as we speak. The parliamentary panel looking into it, and now this is an internal grouping as far as the Bharatiya Janata Party is concerned, as far as the government is concerned, to look into the implications of this implementation, possible implementation.
True.